In the heart of New York City, where the streets never sleep and lights shine brighter than the stars, there lived a man no one noticed. His name was Daniel. Once, he had dreams just like everyone else. But life has a way of breaking even the strongest souls. Years of betrayal, job loss, and one tragedy after another left him with nothing. No home, no family, no one to call his own. Now, Daniel spent his days wandering the sidewalks, clutching an old backpack with a worn-out blanket, a couple of books, and a photo of a smiling woman holding a baby, the last memory of the family he had lost. Every day, people rushed past him as if he didn't exist. Businessmen in sharp suits, mothers pushing strollers, kids with headphones in, all too busy to even glance at the man sitting on the corner with tired eyes and rough hands. To them, he was invisible, just another homeless guy. But what they didn't know was that Daniel's heart still beat with kindness. Beneath the layers of dirt and pain, he carried a soul that still believed in doing good, even if no one believed in him. One cold evening, as the city buzzed with life, Daniel sat outside a bakery. The smell of fresh bread made his stomach growl, but he didn't beg. He never begged. Instead, he offered to help people carry their bags or open doors just for a simple thank you. Most ignored him. Some looked at him with disgust, but Daniel had learned to smile through the pain. What no one knew that night was this. Within hours, Daniel's life was about to change forever. Because sometimes, destiny hides behind the most ordinary days, waiting for a single moment to unfold. The night was colder than usual. Daniel sat on a broken bench, wrapping his thin blanket tightly around his shoulders. He hadn't eaten properly in 2 days. His stomach growled, but he had learned to ignore the hunger. The city moved on without noticing him, as always. Cars rushed by, people laughed on sidewalks, and neon lights from restaurants glowed, lights he could only admire from the outside. But that night was different. Across the street, Daniel noticed a little girl, no more than 6 or 7 years old, standing near the curb. She was holding a small pink teddy bear, her tiny hands clutching it tightly. She seemed lost, looking around desperately, her eyes filled with fear. Daniel's tired eyes immediately locked onto her. Something about the way she stood alone in the chaos of the city made his heart ache. At first, he hesitated. Maybe her parents are nearby, he thought. But then, in the blink of an eye, the little girl stepped forward, too close to the road. A car was speeding down the street, its headlights blinding, the driver not paying attention. Daniel's heart stopped. For a moment, time froze. The girl was just a step away from danger. Daniel didn't think twice. His body moved before his mind could catch up. He threw aside his blanket and ran faster than he had in years. His legs burned, his lungs screamed, but nothing mattered. Not the hunger, not the cold, not the stares from strangers. "Hey, watch out!" Daniel shouted, his voice hoarse but desperate. The little girl turned her head, her eyes wide with terror, just as the car came racing toward her. Daniel lunged forward, grabbing her small arm and pulling her back with all his strength. The car zoomed past, missing them by just a few inches. The loud honk echoed in the night, followed by the screech of tires. They both fell onto the sidewalk, Daniel's body shielding the child. His heart pounded so hard it felt like it would burst. For a moment, neither of them moved. The world seemed silent, except for the distant noise of the city. The girl looked up at him, tears streaming down her cheeks. You saved me," she whispered, clutching her teddy bear tightly against her chest. Daniel, still catching his breath, simply nodded. His hands trembled, but not from the cold, from the shock of what had just happened. He hadn't felt like a hero in years, but tonight he was. And somewhere, deep down, Daniel knew this moment had changed something forever. Daniel slowly helped the girl to her feet. Her tiny fingers were still wrapped tightly around his rough, calloused hand. She was shaking, her teddy bear pressed against her chest, as if it was the only thing keeping her safe. Daniel crouched down so his tired eyes met hers. "Where are your parents?" he asked softly, his voice gentle, though it carried the weight of exhaustion. The girl blinked, her lips trembling. I don't know. I can't find them," she whispered. Her voice cracked, filled with the kind of fear only a child could feel when the world suddenly becomes too big, too dangerous. Daniel's chest tightened. He had seen many things on the streets: hunger, pain, loneliness, but nothing broke him like the sight of a lost child. He looked around quickly, scanning the street. People passed by, some even glanced at them, but no one stopped. Just like always, the world kept moving, cold and uncaring. Kneeling beside her, Daniel asked, "What's your name?" The girl wiped her tears with the back of her hand. "Maria," she said quietly. Daniel forced a small smile. "Maria, that's a beautiful name," she sniffled, her eyes big and innocent. Are you a good person?" she asked, almost in a whisper. The question struck Daniel like lightning. For years he had asked himself the same thing. Was he a good person? He had made mistakes. He had lost everything. He was invisible to the world. But right now, looking into Maria's trembling eyes, he felt something he hadn't felt in a long time. Responsibility. I try to be," he answered honestly. Maria looked down at her teddy bear and hugged it tighter. Then, after a long pause, she whispered something that sent chills down Daniel's spine. "My mommy told me if I ever get lost, I should look for an angel. I think you're the angel she was talking about." Daniel froze. His throat tightened and his eyes stung. An angel? Him? He hadn't been called anything good in years. People usually avoided him, called him names, or didn't notice him at all. And yet, this little girl, this lost, fragile soul, saw him as her angel. For the first time in years, Daniel didn't feel invisible. He felt seen, and that was the beginning of something neither of them could have imagined. Daniel held Maria's small hand as they walked down the busy street. Every step felt heavy. He had no plan, no home, no resources. But now, he carried the weight of a child's trust. People walked past them without a second glance. A scruffy homeless man holding the hand of a lost little girl. To most, it looked strange. To Daniel, it felt like destiny. "Do you remember where you last saw your mommy?" he asked gently. Maria nodded, pointing toward a large shopping mall a few blocks away. "She was buying me ice cream, and then I lost her in the crowd." Her voice cracked as tears welled up again. Daniel squeezed her hand. "Don't worry, we'll find her, I promise." As they moved closer to the mall, Daniel's mind raced. He wasn't a hero. He was just a man who had been forgotten by the world. But for Maria, he had to be more. For the first time in years, he felt a purpose. When they reached the mall, Maria's eyes lit up. "This is it," she said, pulling him toward the entrance. Inside, the chaos of shoppers surrounded them. Bright lights, laughter, footsteps echoing. Maria scanned every face desperately, calling, "Mommy? Mommy?" Daniel watched her, his heart aching. He wanted nothing more than to return this child to her family. Yet in the back of his mind, a voice whispered, "What if they see you? What if they don't trust you?" He took a deep breath and pushed the fear aside. This wasn't about him. Suddenly, over the crowd, Maria gasped, "That's her! That's my mommy!" She pointed toward a woman frantically searching, her face pale with worry. Daniel's chest tightened. Relief flooded him, finally. But just as Maria was about to run to her mother, something unexpected happened. Two men in black coats stepped into the mother's path, blocking her way. The woman froze, fear flashing in her eyes. Daniel felt his heart pound. Something wasn't right. This wasn't going to be as simple as returning a child to her parent. Maria's eyes widened with joy as she saw her mother, but her little feet froze the moment those two men stepped forward. Their tall figures, dark coats, and sharp expressions sent chills down Daniel's spine. The mother's face turned pale, her lips trembling, as if she knew exactly who they were. Daniel bent down to Maria and whispered, "Stay close to me, don't move." The mall's cheerful noise suddenly felt distant. It was as if the world had slowed down and only danger remained. The men whispered something to the woman, and she shook her head violently, clutching her handbag like it held something important. One of the men tried to snatch it, and she screamed. Maria gasped, "Mommy!" and tried to run forward, but Daniel quickly held her back. His heart raced. He had no idea what was happening. But one thing was clear. Maria's mother was in trouble. Daniel's instincts screamed to run away, to protect himself. He was just a homeless man with nothing to lose. But now, he did have something: Maria, her trust, her safety. And maybe, just maybe, this was his chance to prove he was more than the world believed. Without thinking, Daniel tightened his grip on Maria's hand and stepped forward, his voice strong for the first time in years. "Leave her alone." The two men turned their cold eyes toward him, scanning his ragged clothes and unshaven face. One of them smirked. "Stay out of this, old man. You don't know what you're walking into." But Daniel didn't back down. Fear clawed at his chest, yet something deeper pushed him forward. Courage he didn't know he still had. Maria's mother looked at him, tears of desperation in her eyes. "Please, help us." In that moment, Daniel realized this wasn't just about returning a lost child anymore. This was about protecting a family from something far darker. And once again, a man who had nothing chose to stand and fight for everything. The crowd at the mall began to notice the shouting, but most people kept their distance, pretending not to see. That's how the world often is, quick to watch, slow to help. Daniel stood between the men and Maria's mother, his heart pounding so loud it drowned out the noise around him. One of the men stepped forward, his fists clenched, his eyes locked on Daniel. "You don't want this fight, old man," the thug hissed. Daniel swallowed hard. His hands trembled, not from weakness, but from the memory of battles he had fought long ago. No one knew that before he lost his home, before life crushed him. Daniel had once been a soldier, and now those instincts came rushing back. The first man swung at him. Daniel ducked, his body moving faster than he thought possible, and with one sharp motion, he pushed the attacker back into a store display. The second man lunged, but Daniel blocked him, grabbing his arm and twisting until the man cried out in pain. Maria clung to her mother, watching with wide eyes as the man who once seemed broken now stood tall, fierce, unshaken. For the first time, Maria saw not just a homeless man, but a protector. "Go!" Daniel shouted at the mother. "Take Maria and run!" But the woman hesitated, shaking her head. "They won't stop. They want what I have." Daniel's eyes flicked to the handbag she was clutching, and suddenly he realized this wasn't random. These men were after something important, something dangerous. The men staggered back to their feet, their rage burning hotter than ever. The first one snarled, "You've made the biggest mistake of your life." Daniel straightened his shoulders. His clothes were torn, his beard messy, his life shattered, but in that moment he looked unbreakable. "Maybe," he said firmly, "but I'm not letting you touch this child. Not today." The fight was far from over. Daniel kept his stance firm, chest rising and falling rapidly. The thugs circled him like predators, but his eyes never left Maria or her mother. He could see the fear in their faces, but also determination. This woman wasn't an ordinary target, and Daniel wasn't an ordinary man. Suddenly, the mother whispered, trembling, "Daniel, inside the handbag, there's something they want, something important." Daniel's brows furrowed. He hadn't noticed before. The bag was ordinary at first glance, a simple leather purse, but now he saw the subtle bulge, something small, almost delicate, yet valuable enough for these men to risk everything. The first man advanced again, his fists ready. "Step aside," he barked, "or you'll regret it." Daniel didn't flinch. "I don't step aside when a child is in danger," he growled. In a swift motion, Maria's mother clutched the handbag tightly to her chest. "Daniel, whatever you do, protect Maria." Daniel's heart swelled with resolve. He could lose everything, his shelter, his peace, maybe even his life, but he wouldn't let harm touch this little girl. The first thug lunged, aiming for the bag. Daniel moved instinctively, intercepting him with a combination of sheer strength and speed. The man stumbled, hitting a display of mannequins. The second thug tried to grab the bag from the mother, but Daniel intercepted again, delivering a precise push that sent the man crashing into a cart full of merchandise. Amid the chaos, Maria clung tightly to her mother, her eyes wide as she witnessed a stranger, a homeless man, risking everything to protect her. Then something shocking happened. The handbag slipped slightly from the mother's grasp, revealing its contents, a small, unmarked envelope. The thug's eyes went wide, recognition flashing across their faces. "Give it to us," one hissed. "That's ours." Daniel realized at that moment that this was no random mugging. This envelope held something powerful, dangerous, and he was now in the middle of it. Maria tugged at his sleeve, whispering, "Don't let them take it, sir." Daniel looked down at her, and in that instant, he knew, no matter the cost, he would protect this child. The fight wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about saving lives. Hers, her mother's, and maybe even his own. The thugs lunged forward again, their eyes blazing with desperation. Daniel held Maria tightly, using his body as a shield, while her mother clutched the handbag like a lifeline. With a sudden burst of courage, Daniel stepped forward, pushing both thugs back. "Stop, you won't get it," he shouted, his voice echoing through the mall. The mother seized the moment and opened the envelope carefully. Inside was a small USB drive, its black casing plain but ominous. Daniel frowned. He had seen enough movies to know this could be dangerous, but he had no time to think. He had to act. The first thug growled, "Hand it over." Daniel didn't move. "You don't scare me. Leave us alone." Maria clung to his leg, her small voice trembling. "Sir, they'll hurt us." Daniel looked down at her, the weight of responsibility heavier than anything he had ever felt. "Not on my watch," he whispered fiercely. He turned his attention back to the thugs, calculating his next move. These men were dangerous, but desperation made people reckless. One wrong step for them could be the opening he needed. The USB drive represented something bigger than Daniel could understand. Money, power, secrets. But all that mattered now was keeping Maria and her mother safe. Suddenly, a sharp whistle echoed from above. Shoppers scattered, and a security guard appeared, pulling the two men back. "Freeze! Police are on their way!" The thugs snarled but retreated, realizing they were outnumbered. Daniel exhaled deeply, holding Maria close. "Are you okay, little one?" he asked, brushing a lock of hair from her face. Maria nodded, eyes wide. Thanks to you, you saved me. Daniel felt something stir inside, a warmth he hadn't felt in years. He was still a homeless man, still a man with nothing. Yet in this moment, he was a hero. The mother looked at him, tears in her eyes. I don't know how to thank you. You've saved my daughter, saved us all. Daniel shook his head, still holding the USB drive. I don't need thanks. Just keep her safe. But deep down, he knew something had changed. That small act of courage, protecting a child he didn't even know, had ignited something in him. For the first time in years, Daniel felt alive. The calm after the mall chaos was temporary, a fragile bubble of relief that Daniel knew wouldn't last. As the mother gathered Maria's hand, whispering reassurances, Daniel scanned the crowd. The thugs had vanished, but he could feel it. Their presence lingered, like shadows waiting to strike again. Later that night, Daniel sat outside on a cold park bench, Maria asleep in her mother's arms, the USB drive tucked safely in his worn jacket pocket. He wasn't homeless anymore in spirit. Tonight, he was a guardian, a protector. Yet his stomach churned with worry. He remembered the way the thugs had moved, their desperation, their knowledge of the envelope's contents. Whoever sent them was powerful. Whoever they were, they wouldn't stop. Then his phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. You have something that doesn't belong to you. Return it or she pays the price. Daniel's jaw tightened. He looked down at Maria, her peaceful face lit by the streetlight. The thought of her in danger made something snap inside him. This wasn't about money, fame, or survival anymore. It was about protecting innocence. The next morning, he returned to the mother's apartment to check on them. Maria greeted him with a shy smile, tugging at his hand. Her trust was a fragile gift, and he intended to honor it. But danger was closer than he thought. Outside, in the shadows, figures watched the building, silent, patient, calculating. Daniel didn't notice them yet, but they were waiting for the perfect moment. Inside, Maria's mother spoke quietly. I don't know why they wanted this USB. It contains nothing but evidence. Proof of corruption at the company I work for. They'll do anything to get it back. Daniel's eyes narrowed. Then we need a plan. You, Maria, and I, we stick together. No one separates us. Maria clung to him, sensing the tension, yet feeling safe. For the first time in years, Daniel understood the weight of responsibility and the strength it gave him. Outside, the wind whispered through the streets, carrying with it a silent promise. The danger was far from over, and the next move could change all their lives forever. Daniel had just settled Maria and her mother in the apartment, double-checking that the USB drive was hidden safely in his worn jacket pocket. He leaned against the wall, taking a deep breath, trying to calm the storm in his mind. The adrenaline was still pumping, his senses sharp, but he allowed himself a brief moment of relief. Then came the screech of tires outside. The sudden, violent sound of brakes echoed through the street. Daniel's head snapped toward the window. A sleek black SUV had pulled up, doors slamming with authority. Shadows moved inside the tinted glass, deliberate, menacing. Before he could react, a tall man stepped out. Black suit, cold eyes, and a presence that demanded attention. This wasn't just one of the thugs from the mall. This was someone higher up, someone dangerous. Daniel's stomach tightened. His instincts screamed at him. Run, hide, protect. Maria stirred behind him, her small fingers clutching his arm. The man approached slowly, confidence in every step, his gaze locked on Daniel, then on the USB drive peeking from his jacket. You have something that doesn't belong to you, the man said smoothly, voice like ice. Hand it over and no one gets hurt. Daniel squared his shoulders. He didn't flinch. No, this stays with me. You'll have to go through me first. A small smirk appeared on the antagonist's face. Bold. I like that. But you don't know what you're up against. Maria's mother grabbed Daniel's hand, whispering, he's serious. We need to protect Maria. Daniel looked down at the little girl, her wide eyes full of trust. He knew there was no turning back. Whatever came next, he had to face it head on, not just for the USB drive, but for Maria's safety. The man circled the front of the apartment, slowly, deliberately, like a predator assessing its prey. Every muscle in Daniel's body tensed. He could feel the danger radiating from this stranger. Then the antagonist spoke again, softer this time, almost casually. You've done well to protect her so far, but do you really think you can keep her safe from what's coming? Daniel's eyes narrowed, jaw clenched. I don't know, but I do know I won't let you hurt her. The man's smirk widened. We'll see about that. As the SUV's engine revved, Daniel realized the fight for Maria's life was only beginning, and that every decision from this moment forward could be the difference between survival and disaster. The night air was thick with tension as Daniel watched the antagonist stand outside, framed by the dark SUV and the flickering streetlights. Then, In a slow, deliberate motion, the man reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small, worn photograph. Daniel's breath hitched. He recognized it immediately. A younger version of himself, standing alongside a man he thought he'd left behind years ago. The man in the photo wasn't a stranger. He was a former partner in a failed business venture, someone Daniel had trusted with everything, only to be betrayed and left to pick up the pieces alone. The antagonist's eyes gleamed with a dangerous mix of recognition and resentment. Daniel, it's been a long time. I wondered if fate would ever bring us together again. Daniel's heart raced. Memories flooded back. Sleepless nights, ruined deals, and the collapse of the one company that had been his dream. But this wasn't about money or business anymore. It was about Maria, the child he had vowed to protect. "You're here for the USB, Daniel said, his voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through him. "Not me. Stay away from her." The man's smirk turned cold. "Oh, Daniel, it's all connected. That little girl, that USB, they're part of a bigger picture. You were always so blind to the consequences of your actions." Maria clung to Daniel's leg, her small body trembling. He looked down at her, whispered, "It's okay, I'm right here." The antagonist took a step closer, his shadow stretching across the sidewalk, menacing and deliberate. "You could have walked away, Daniel, but you didn't. And now it's too late." Daniel's jaw tightened. Rage, fear, and determination collided within him. He wasn't the same man he had been years ago, weaker, broken, and alone. Now he had purpose, and he had something worth fighting for. Maria's life. "You can threaten me all you want," Daniel said firmly, "but you won't touch her. Not ever." The man's eyes flickered, calculating. Then, almost casually, he tossed the photograph onto the sidewalk at Daniel's feet. It fluttered in the wind, landing near Maria's tiny shoes. Daniel picked it up, and in that instant, he realized something chilling. The antagonist knew far more than he should. He knew about Maria, about the USB, about Daniel's past, everything. And for the first time, Daniel understood the stakes weren't just high, they were life and death. Daniel's heart raced as the antagonist stepped closer, his presence looming like a storm ready to break. The small photograph on the ground flapped in the wind, a cruel reminder of Daniel's past mistakes. Then, in a move so sudden it made Daniel freeze, the man pulled out a small device from his pocket, a tracking beacon, blinking faintly red. "You see, Daniel, I always have a backup plan. And right now, I know exactly where your little treasure is." Daniel's eyes widened. His mind raced. The device was active, sending signals to someone ready to act at a moment's notice. Maria's mother gasped, clutching her child tightly. What are you going to do?" she whispered, panic rising in her voice. The antagonist's lips curved into a cold smile. "I don't want to hurt anyone, not yet, but let's see how far you'll go to protect her." Daniel's fists clenched. He had no time to call for help. Police would take minutes that could cost Maria her life. He had to act, think, and move all at once. Outside, the street was nearly empty, giving the man the perfect stage for intimidation. Daniel took a deep breath, whispering to Maria, "Stay close to Mom, I've got this." Maria's tiny hand squeezed his jacket, eyes wide but trusting. Daniel knew he had one chance, one opportunity to outsmart a man who had been waiting years for revenge, a man who knew every weakness Daniel had. And then it happened. With a swift motion, the antagonist signaled someone inside the SUV. Two masked men jumped out, moving quickly toward the building. Their target was clear, Maria. Daniel acted without hesitation. He grabbed a nearby trash can lid and held it like a shield, placing himself between the child and the masked attackers. The first man lunged, but Daniel sidestepped, using his weight to push him off balance. "Run!" he shouted to Maria and her mother, and they bolted into the apartment. The antagonist laughed, a chilling sound that echoed through the street. "Clever, but predictable. You can't protect her forever." Daniel's eyes burned with determination. He may have been homeless once, powerless, a man with nothing, but tonight he realized he had something stronger than fear. He had courage, he had heart, and he had one mission: keep Maria alive, no matter the cost. The masked attackers advanced with terrifying precision, their footsteps echoing against the empty street. Daniel's heart pounded in his chest, a relentless drum of urgency and fear. Every instinct screamed, protect Maria at all costs. He spotted the fire escape ladder on the side of the apartment building, a risky move, but it was the only way to get Maria and her mother to safety. With a sharp glance at them, he shouted, "Follow me! Stay close and don't look back." Maria's mother grabbed her hand, and together they bolted, Daniel leading the way. One of the attackers lunged at him, but he dodged just in time, using the momentum to shove the man into a stack of trash bins. The crash echoed like a gunshot, buying precious seconds. The antagonist watched from across the street, his expression unreadable. "Not bad, but let's see how long your luck lasts," he muttered under his breath. Daniel reached the fire escape and helped Maria's mother onto the first rung, then lifted Maria into her arms. Her small body pressed against his chest, fragile and trusting. He could feel her heartbeat, rapid but calm with his presence. One of the masked men scrambled up behind them, but Daniel swung the trash can lid, forcing him back with a loud clang. "Go! Now!" Daniel yelled, adrenaline giving him strength he didn't know he had. They climbed higher, rung by rung, until they reached the roof. The city stretched out beneath them, a chaotic tangle of lights, streets, and shadows. Daniel glanced down. The attackers were below, blocked by the fire escape's base. Temporary safety, but not enough. He looked at Maria, her eyes wide but trusting, and made the decision. There was a rooftop on the next building, close enough to jump. Risky, terrifying, but their only option. Daniel's chest tightened. He whispered to Maria, "Hold on tight. Daddy's got you." With a deep breath, he jumped, landing hard but steady. Maria clutched him, a gasp escaping her lips, and then they rolled safely onto the adjacent roof. Her mother followed, a terrified but relieved cry escaping her. For a brief moment, the city was silent around them. Daniel sat up, breathing heavily, looking at Maria's face. She smiled, tiny, hesitant, but real. It was the first sign of relief, the first flicker of hope. Behind them, the antagonist watched, expression dark, calculating. He wasn't finished. Not yet. Daniel rose, determination hardening in his eyes. He had saved them for now, but the real battle was only beginning, and he was ready to fight. Daniel crouched beside Maria and her mother on the rooftop, heart still hammering, eyes scanning the streets below. For a moment, he allowed himself a fleeting sense of relief, but it was quickly shattered. From the shadows of the street, the antagonist's voice echoed, chilling and precise. "You think this is about revenge, Daniel? No, it's about closure." Daniel froze. "Closure? What are you talking about?" he demanded, voice steady despite the adrenaline still coursing through him. The antagonist stepped forward, revealing himself fully for the first time since the attack. His face was familiar, yet Daniel couldn't place it at first. And then, memories struck like lightning. This was Jacob, a man Daniel had unknowingly wronged years ago during an old investment deal that had gone south, leaving Jacob's family bankrupt and his younger brother in the hospital. Daniel had thought he'd made amends, long forgotten, but Jacob had held a grudge. "You destroyed my family," Jacob spat. "You took everything from me, and now you have what I wanted most, the perfect life, the child, and you have no idea the price of your success." Daniel's chest tightened. Every nerve screamed, "Protect Maria, protect her at all costs." He realized Jacob wasn't after money. He wanted something far more dangerous: revenge, control, and a twisted sense of justice. Maria tugged at his sleeve, her small voice trembling. "Daddy, are we safe?" Daniel's eyes softened as he looked at her. "For now, sweetie, but we need a plan." Jacob's gaze flickered toward Maria, and Daniel felt a cold rage coil in his stomach. This wasn't just about the past anymore. It was about the present, the innocent, the lives he now swore to protect. Daniel's mind raced, recalling every detail of the rooftop, every escape route. He needed leverage, something to turn the tables before Jacob made his next move. Jacob smirked, sensing Daniel's hesitation. "You can't hide forever, Daniel. I've waited years for this, and I won't stop until I get what I deserve." Daniel straightened, determination blazing in his eyes. "Then we'll see who really wins." For the first time, he felt the full weight of responsibility, not as a businessman, not as a man with regrets, but as a father willing to risk everything to protect his daughter. The city lights flickered below, and Daniel knew one thing with certainty. Tonight, nothing would stop him from keeping Maria safe. Daniel crouched beside Maria, scanning the darkened streets below, when suddenly he noticed movement near a fire escape on a neighboring building. A figure emerged, cautious but purposeful. "Who's there?" Daniel called out, tension tightening his voice. The figure stepped into the dim light, revealing a familiar face. Officer Ramirez, a detective Daniel had briefly met months ago during a city outreach program. Ramirez had always been sharp, intuitive, and known for taking risks when children were involved. "You're Daniel Reed," Ramirez said, his tone calm but firm. "I've been tracking this guy for weeks. I know what he's capable of, and I'm not letting him hurt the girl." Daniel's chest tightened with a mixture of relief and surprise. I didn't expect anyone here." Ramirez glanced toward Jacob, who was pacing below, his gaze sharp and calculating. "Neither did he. That's the advantage we have. But we need to move now. This isn't just about scaring you. He'll escalate quickly if we give him a chance." Maria clung tightly to Daniel, her small body trembling. "Daddy, who's that?" she whispered. Daniel kneeled and looked into her eyes. "A friend, sweetie. Someone who's going to help us stay safe. Ramirez quickly assessed the situation. You have a few options, he said, pulling out a small device from his pocket. I can coordinate backup from here, but we need to get off these rooftops and into a controlled area. Fast. Daniel nodded. The weight of responsibility pressed on him like never before. But seeing Ramirez's calm determination, he felt a flicker of hope. For the first time in hours, he believed they might actually have a chance. Jacob, however, noticed the movement and clenched his fists. So, you brought help, he said through gritted teeth. Clever, but it won't save you. Daniel rose slowly, his eyes locking with Jacob's. Maybe not, but it will give Maria a fighting chance, and that's all that matters. Ramirez signaled, and within moments, faint sirens could be heard in the distance. The streets that had felt like a trap minutes ago now seemed like the stage for a plan that could finally turn the tables. Maria's tiny hand squeezed Daniel's, her wide eyes filled with trust. Daniel whispered softly, "Stay close to me. We're going to get through this together." For the first time since the night began, he felt not just fear or desperation, but courage. A father's courage, strengthened by the unexpected ally at his side. Just as Daniel, Maria, and Officer Ramirez began to coordinate their escape, Jacob's figure shifted with lightning speed. Without warning, he lunged toward the fire escape that connected to their rooftop, his eyes blazing with a dangerous resolve. "Stay behind me!" Daniel shouted, shielding Maria instinctively. His heart raced, every muscle primed for action. Jacob's hand shot out, grabbing the railing, and with a powerful shove he threatened to destabilize the structure. Metal groaned under the sudden weight, sparks flying from the joints. Maria's small voice trembled. "Daddy!" Daniel's mind raced. The sirens in the distance were getting closer, but it wasn't enough to stop Jacob now. He realized that Jacob's plan wasn't just revenge anymore. It was to force Daniel into a choice: his life or Maria's. Officer Ramirez shouted instructions, but the chaos made communication nearly impossible. Daniel's gaze met Ramirez's for a split second, and then he turned back to Jacob, steeling himself. "This ends now, Jacob," Daniel barked, his voice sharp and unwavering. "I don't know why you've hated me for so long, but I will not let you hurt her." Jacob smirked, his face twisted with fury and desperation. "You think you can stop me? This is payback." With a sudden, unexpected move, Jacob tried to push a nearby crate toward the fire escape, aiming to create a barricade and trap them. Daniel lunged forward, catching the crate just in time, and using it to his advantage, slammed it against Jacob's side. The impact threw Jacob off balance, forcing him to retreat momentarily. In that instant, Ramirez radioed in their position and confirmed backup was mere seconds away. Daniel, heart pounding, whispered to Maria, "Hold on, it's going to be okay." Maria clutched his shirt tightly, her small body pressed against his chest. For a brief, terrifying moment, Daniel realized just how fragile life was, and how every heartbeat, every second mattered. Jacob, realizing his plan was crumbling, gave a low growl of frustration. He knew the authorities would arrive soon, and Daniel was no ordinary father. He was a protector, willing to risk everything. And in that split second, Daniel made a vow. Nothing, not fear, not danger, not revenge, would ever come between him and Maria again. The distant sound of police sirens grew louder. Backup was nearly there, and in a heartbeat, everything could change, either salvation or catastrophe. The wail of approaching sirens echoed through the streets below as Jacob's eyes darted around, calculating his next move. He had underestimated Daniel's resolve and the presence of Officer Ramirez. Now, panic flickered across his face. Daniel tightened his hold on Maria, her small hands clutching his shirt. "Stay close to me," he whispered, his voice steady despite the fear gnawing at his chest. Every instinct screamed to protect her, no matter the cost. Jacob lunged again, this time grabbing a loose pipe from the rooftop edge, intending to intimidate Daniel. But Daniel had anticipated this. He sidestepped swiftly, using Jacob's momentum to his advantage. Jacob stumbled, teetering dangerously close to the edge. Ramirez moved in with calculated precision. "Jacob, step back now. You don't want this." His authoritative voice cut through the chaos like a blade. For a brief, heart-stopping moment, Jacob froze. His eyes flicked toward Maria, and a flicker of realization crossed his face. His revenge could cost an innocent child her life. Daniel took the chance. "It's over, Jacob. You can still walk away." Jacob's face contorted with rage, frustration, and something else, fear. He hesitated, teetering on the edge of the rooftop, and in that instant, the authorities arrived. A team of officers stormed the building's entrance, shouting commands. Feeling cornered, Jacob made a desperate move, reaching toward Daniel. But before he could act, Ramirez grabbed his arm, pulling him back, forcing him onto the rooftop safely but firmly restrained. Daniel exhaled, the tension finally releasing, and lowered himself to the ground, holding Maria tightly, her little arms wrapped around his neck. "Daddy, we're okay," she whispered, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Yes, baby," Daniel replied, kissing the top of her head, his own eyes glistening. "We're okay. You're safe." The sirens drew closer, the authorities swarming in to take Jacob into custody. Daniel, still holding Maria, looked up at the stars emerging in the night sky, feeling a weight lift from his shoulders. This rooftop, once the site of unimaginable danger, had become a place of victory, courage, and the unbreakable bond between father and daughter. Daniel realized in that moment, no matter the darkness, the risks, or the challenges, he would always stand between Maria and the world, protecting her with every ounce of his being. With Jacob now restrained by Officer Ramirez, Daniel stepped back, still holding Maria tightly. The sirens outside blared like a warning, but the air felt heavier now, charged with unspoken truths. Ramirez approached, his expression serious. "Daniel, there's something you need to know about him. About Jacob." Daniel furrowed his brow, concern gripping him. "What is it?" Ramirez took a deep breath. "Jacob, he wasn't always like this. He grew up in foster care, bounced from home to home, neglect, abuse. He never had anyone to guide him, anyone to care for him properly. By the time he was a teenager, the system had failed him completely." Daniel's mind raced. He had thought he knew why Jacob acted so violently. Jealousy, rage, revenge. But now the layers peeled back, revealing a deeper story. A child's pain turned into a lifetime of anger. "He's angry because he's never been safe," Ramirez continued. "No one ever gave him a chance, a mentor, a family, and now he's taking it out on others. But he's not inherently evil, Daniel. He's broken." Daniel looked at Jacob, who sat slumped against the wall, handcuffed, his face pale and haunted. For the first time, Daniel saw vulnerability instead of pure malice. The fire in Jacob's eyes had dimmed, replaced by fear and confusion. Maria, sensing the tension, tugged at Daniel's shirt. "Daddy, he's sad?" she asked softly. "Yes, baby," Daniel whispered, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "Sometimes people are sad inside, and it makes them do scary things." Ramirez nodded. "It doesn't excuse what he did tonight, but it explains it. And maybe, just maybe, with the right help, he can change." Daniel exhaled slowly, feeling a strange mix of relief and unease. The danger had passed, but the story wasn't over. Jacob's life, broken as it was, had collided with his own in a way that would leave lasting ripples. Looking at Maria's small, trusting eyes, Daniel made a silent vow. He would protect her innocence, her joy, and her life, no matter the shadows of others around them. Daniel, still holding Maria close, stepped aside as Officer Ramirez began questioning Jacob. But as Jacob spoke, a strange calm settled over him, almost eerie, given the chaos of the night. "There's something you don't know," Jacob said, his voice low, almost trembling. "The night you saved her, it wasn't random." Daniel froze. "What do you mean?" Jacob swallowed hard, eyes darting between Daniel and Ramirez. "I've been watching your daughter for weeks, not because I wanted to hurt her, not exactly, but because I thought she could save me." Daniel's heart skipped a beat. "Save you? What are you talking about?" Jacob's hands shook behind the handcuffs. "I grew up with no one, no family, no love. Every time I saw a kid, a happy kid, it reminded me of everything I lost. And when I saw her tonight, I realized I could never hurt someone like her. She's different. She reminded me of what I never had, what I needed." Daniel's mind raced, disbelief and confusion colliding. Maria tugged at his shirt again. "Daddy, he's not bad, right?" she whispered. Daniel knelt, looking into her wide, trusting eyes. "Not all bad, baby, just lost." Ramirez stepped forward, speaking softly. "Jacob was planning something reckless, yes, but the moment he saw you step in, the moment he realized you'd protect her, something changed inside him. That's why he didn't actually hurt her. That's why he hesitated." Daniel exhaled slowly, relief mixing with a twinge of unease. The night had been a nightmare, but Maria's innocence had inadvertently sparked something in Jacob, a glimmer of realization, of humanity buried under years of pain. Looking at Maria, her small fingers gripping his jacket, Daniel felt a profound truth. Even in the darkest hearts, the light of courage and love could reach through. Tonight had been terrifying, but it had also been transformative, not just for his daughter, but for everyone involved. The night had finally quieted. Sirens faded into the distance, and the city's hum returned to its normal rhythm. Daniel held Maria close, her tiny head resting against his chest, both of them catching their breath after the terrifying ordeal. Jacob was taken into custody, but there was a noticeable difference in his demeanor. Gone was the unrelenting anger. In its place was a quiet acknowledgement of what had almost happened and what could have been lost forever. The next morning, sunlight streamed through the apartment windows. Daniel prepared breakfast for Maria, her laughter filling the kitchen like music. The trauma of the previous night still lingered, but it was tempered by the profound lesson of courage, empathy, and the power of one selfless act. Maria looked up at him with wide, trusting eyes. "Daddy, we saved me, right?" she asked, her voice small but full of certainty. "Yes, baby," Daniel said softly, tears threatening to spill. "We were brave and we made it through together." As the day unfolded, Daniel realized something remarkable. The events of last night had not only protected Maria, but had shifted something deep within him. He had always seen himself as a protector, but now he understood the true meaning of courage, acting selflessly, even when the outcome is uncertain. Meanwhile, Jacob's story began to unfold in the following days. Social workers and counselors uncovered the painful chapters of his childhood. Though he had made mistakes, the spark of humanity Daniel had witnessed on that rooftop suggested that with guidance and support, he could still change. Daniel reflected on the profound truth of the night. One act of bravery could ripple through lives, changing destinies in ways unimaginable. A homeless man's courage had saved his daughter, and in doing so, had opened the door to a second chance for everyone involved. Holding Maria tightly, Daniel whispered, "No matter what, I'll always protect you. And maybe, just maybe, tonight proves that even lost souls can find a way back." The city outside continued its endless rhythm, but inside their home, a sense of peace and gratitude settled. Life had been forever altered, not by wealth or power, but by courage, empathy, and the undeniable power of a single act to change the world. Moral lesson: even the smallest acts of bravery and compassion can create ripples that transform lives. Courage, empathy, and selflessness are stronger than fear, anger, and hardship. And sometimes, saving one life can change many others forever.